I'm building a 2-trailer tiny house. It's time for a build update. It's taken me a while to get the next update out, mainly because the last few weeks has just involved heaps of thinking. The idea of a 2-trailer tiny house is not new and it's thrown around a bit, but I tell you what, the execution is complicated. Getting these 2 trailers to nest up properly so that it can seal up, walls come around, roof comes over, and it can deal with like sideways rain and rain that somehow penetrates steel, it's taken a lot of work. What I've tried to do is focus on how will these 2 trailers join up and get that right first before I continue on the rest of the build. So the first thing I've focused on is how these walls are going to swing up, lock in and join the 2 trailers. There was a lot I had to consider in designing the walls. I had to make sure they were going to be strong enough, that they were going to be able to swing out, clear the floor, support the roof, and then be able to stack back in when I close them up. Originally I wanted to put a wall on each trailer so they could swing out separately. The problem I had with that was when I swung out one wall, I couldn't swing out the other one without colliding with this wall if it was to come out. I did consider keeping one wall closed and then swinging this wall all the way up, but as you can see, about here it starts meeting the trailer already, which means it would start to hit the wall that's nested back into that trailer. So I had to put both the walls on one trailer. There was a design I could come up with that would allow me to put them on separate trailers, but it just got more complicated. Putting both walls on one trailer came with its own problems though. The biggest challenge was when I stacked them back into the trailer here. What I needed to do was to be able to have clearance between these frames to allow for all the cladding and lining that's going to be between them. In fact, these 2 walls, these 2 frames rather, have 130mm clearance between them. I need to be able to allow for the lining, flashings, cladding, battens, insulation, so that when they swing back in, there's enough room for all of that, plus there's a space in between so they aren't going to rub. That then posed challenges in how I swing the walls. My first wall was quite simple. I swung it off of the end of the post and just welded it in bullet hinges. Very easy. Problem is, this wall needed to set back in 130mm when it swung closed, but still swing out much like this one did. So I've made these large offset hinges, so when the wall swings out, it comes around and meets the post like the other one does and will nest over into the other trailer, but then when it swings back around, recesses back into the trailer. I then had to make sure that that roof line up there will allow the wall to swing back in without hitting the roof, and that when it swung back over here, it's going to clear my floor and all its coverings. So the next steps is to work on getting these walls swinging and how it will nest into the other trailer. Now I've designed most of that and started building that into the wall already, but I've got to stand up this wall here. So this wall, those pieces that are standing up here are actually meant to be up in the air, and the wall is laying down on the trailer. That needs to be stood up. I then work on how the walls will lock in to the other wall here, and then I can give you a better idea about how the walls are actually going to swing and lock in between the trailers. Once I've done that, I then start working on the roof. Now, I'm not going to explain the roof yet because it's going to be a complicated beast and I'm still working on some of it, but I'm looking at somehow having a sliding roof, which will be quite interesting. So once I can get these walls working properly, because they're critical to be able to work on the roof, I can then start the design of the roof and how that's going to come over and join up the 2 trailers. But before I can do any of that, I'm faced with a problem. I'm starting to struggle to lift this stuff by myself. I'm a one-man wolf pack. It's not only heavy, but it's awkward and cumbersome. And then during the week, I had a mishap where I was lifting on this swinging wall and that post slipped off the hinges and then swung down at me. Now, luckily I've got ninja-like reflexes and I was able to deflect it out of the way. And I only came away with a bruised wrist, but that could have ended differently. And despite the stupid shit that I do actually take safety seriously because, well, I want to be able to finish. So I guess it comes to a point where I have to realize I just can't finish this solo because I can't lift this stuff by myself. So I'm going to change course and I'm going to build a crane because I need something I can lift with. So I've got a spare axle from the micro tiny house I did last year and I've already started building the boom. So the design brief for this one is it needs to be able to lift a couple 100 kilos. I have to be able to lift over the top to the center of my tiny house at full height, and I have to be able to operate it myself. So I need to be able to operate the winch up and down and still position whatever I'm lifting. Unlike me to get distracted by a cool project, but a necessary diversion so that I can keep working on the tiny house. I need something that can help me lift. I've got to lift up this wall here. This frame here has to be 2.5 meters in the air. I've still got to lift on the roof structure here that's going to join these two tiny houses. So the next update's likely to be about a crane. Hopefully I can get that built and like functional without taking up too much time, and then I can get back to building the tiny house. So wish me luck. I'm about to build a crane.